Rutgers football delivers big time on Saturday with a 26-19 victory over Minnesota at home. Comeback in the fourth quarter. It was very sweet. And coming to you a few hours later, I with my kids on Saturdays. I work in the city during the week, if you don't know that already. So I'm not around them a ton. And I've just decided on noon kickoffs, I'm going to wait to do it until after they get to bed. And so I'm coming to you a few hours late, but I have plenty to say. And I appreciate if you're listening or watching me right now, talk about just a performance that tells us a lot about this program, right? We've all been super frustrated, super upset the way they performed in October. And guess what? That is still valid. They really disappointed and underachieved in October, and it eliminated the possibility of a special season. However, going into the bye week, they had a chance to reset. They had a chance to heal up a little bit. Some of the players that were on the injury report were not today. And that obviously showed in the defensive performance because the defense really stepped up in this game. A lot of great individual performances. And as a unit, they really brought it. And it was great to see also the offense kind of set the tone early and the defense get picked up by the offense and then really dig in and do what the defense, when this program's at its best, the defense did what it does in crunch time. And that sealed the deal. And for the first time all season, it was a true complimentary football win. I'd say Virginia Tech, the way they sealed that game was complimentary football. There were plays on offense, defense, and special teams in the end of that game. Today, definitely was there. And a lot of standout performances in this game. But overall, I just think what this says about this program, they could have packed it in, and for the most part, other than the Wisconsin game, this team has battled all year. We can lament the Nebraska loss. We can lament the UCLA loss. Those are two games that I think we're going to look back on and say, you know what? Those were games that we really wish Rutgers would have pulled out. Although UCLA loss is aging well. They beat Iowa on Friday night. But 4-4, and you come out, you're missing Kyle Monungai. Greg Schiano talking about after the game that they basically didn't let him play, that for his own good. And I said in the preview on Friday, I was skeptical that he was going to be able to play. He's been dealing with an injury that he took those vicious hits against USC, helmet to helmet. So wasn't very confident he was going to play, did not play. And, as a Rutgers fan, it's fair to go into this game and wonder, you know what, it's not looking good. And first drive, Rutgers stalls at the Minnesota 35. And they go back down the field, and Minnesota scores on its first possession. And everyone had the thought, here we go again. And to the offensive's credit, they stepped up. And let's just talk about Athan Kaliakmanis, how sweet of a victory this is for him, his family, his brother Dino, who, by the way, before I forget, Dino did make a big special teams play in the fourth quarter. He took the correct angle, and the returner for Minnesota, it wasn't like a monster hit or anything, but Dino took the right angle, and it made the returner for Minnesota slip, and he got the tackle, and it was a big play in the moment. So it was great to see Dino, former Minnesota Gopher and brother of Athan, also make a play in this game. But Athan Kaliakmanis, the offense struggled in the second half. That completion percentage went down pretty quickly. I think it started the game 12 of 15, finished 17 of 33, 52%, which is on par for the year. But 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Demir Miller in the first half, wide open Ian Strong in the second half, completed several big pass plays. And you had that Ian Strong 65-yarder. That was just a beautiful play. Ian Strong making a great adjustment on the ball and great move, fingertip catch, and then had that touchdown. But Kaliakmanis made some really good throws in this game. Listen, he is what he is. He's not a 65 to 70% completion percentage quarterback. He's just not. But he can make some real throws. He can stretch the field, which Rutgers hasn't had in a quarterback in a long time. And he has been fairly good. He had that brutal interception at the end of the first half that was really worrisome in that it killed momentum and the offense really didn't recover. until late in that game when they got the defense set them up in tremendous field position, which we'll get to. But that was, the mistake there was he threw in the front of the end zone, not in the back of the end zone. He was trying to find Miller for a third touchdown, but he had two really good passes to Miller for touchdowns before that, and he established the lead for Rutgers. He was very accurate early on. Rutgers was able to move the ball, and they delivered two 75-yard scoring drives. So there was a lot to like, but just for the kid's sake, I mean, he went out there, he left it all on the field. He beat his former team where he used to be the starter, not really. I don't know how public it's been made, but I mean, it's out there that, he lost his job and he wasn't going to go back there. And he found a home at Rutgers. Kirk Shiraka, his old offensive coordinator who recruited him there, brings him in. And you got to be happy for both of them tonight. Kirk Shiraka had a really good game plan, I thought, and pushed the right buttons when he needed to. And it was great redemption for them. But Kaliakmanis especially, I mean, listen, he's at almost 2,000 yards now, 1,900 yards in the year, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. His completion rate is around 54%. Not super impressive, but overall, listen, he was not the problem in October, and they would not have won this game today against Minnesota without him. And salute to him, and just a great victory for him. Overall, the passing game, I mean, Rutgers has 3 receivers that made big plays in this game. Demir Miller, 5 catches, 58 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was targeted 13 times. He did have several drops, but he made some big plays when it counted. Ian Strong, 4 catches, 89 yards, a touchdown, 9 targets, no drops from him. 30 yards after the catch, led the team. And it was just great to see. I mean, he's such a big body guy. And then his former high school teammate, KJ Duff, 3 catches, 65 yards. He had a 37-yarder. He was targeted 5 times, 9 yards after the catch, no drops for him. That is 3 standout performances at wide receiver that Rutgers, they haven't had that type of big play balance in the receiving corps in a long time. No Kyle Monungai. Antoine Raymond, I think, competent performance, 22 carries, 73 yards. His numbers looked a little bit better till the end of the game. He got stuffed a little bit. And then Jashawn Benjamin really came on, stepped up for this offense late in the game, had a 20-yard rush, 11 carries, 66 yards, 6 yards a carry. So out of them, I mean, 33 carries, 139 yards. Not the most efficient performance, but they were solid. And let's salute here the offensive line. I thought they did a very good job. I think the big difference here coming off the bye week was the physical nature in which the offensive line and defensive line played was severely lacking in October. And you saw both lines really take it to Minnesota in this game. They were the tougher team. They wanted it more. They were more physical. Both teams were playing with violence. And that's what you needed. And that's what was sorely missing during that 4-game losing streak. I thought in terms of, Kaliakmanis took a big hit at one point, but overall, Minnesota had 2 sacks. They had 4 tackles for loss. But overall, I thought the offensive line did a good job. Tyler Needham got hurt late in the game. Holland Pierce, a rock at left tackle. And just in terms of the running backs, without Monungai there were a lot less times where the running back had to make a move behind the line of scrimmage. So the running game didn't dominate by any means. Overall, 109 yards rushing because there were some negatives there from Kaliakmanis in terms of the sacks. But I thought just in terms of what's the average rushing yards, I don't have that in front of me. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, with the loss there, the average per rush wasn't great. But overall, I thought they did enough to balance things out. And just in terms of what Kaliakmanis was able to do, overall 17 to 33, 240 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have that interception. But average yards per play, 4.9 yards, a little bit better than Minnesota. Not super impressive, but enough to win the game. He averaged 14.1 yards per completion, which was much more than Minnesota at 9.7. Brosmer, his replacement, was 27 to 45, 262 yards, a touchdown, 6% completion rate. I mean, they held Taylor the running back in the check. He had over 130 yards rushing against Illinois last year, just 10 last week in that win at Illinois, who was ranked at the time. Taylor just 10 rushes, 28 yards in this game. Also kept him check in the pass game. He had 9 catches last week, just 2 for -3 yards today. They had 3 receivers over 60 yards, but the yards after catch, they had 112. Still a lot more than Rutgers. Rutgers just 53, but a lot less than USC and UCLA. And I think you see the difference when they're not playing teams with elite speed. This defense can compete. When they play teams with elite speed, which, makes Maryland a little bit worrisome next week. However, this defense looked a lot better. They were obviously a lot more rested. Let's talk about some of the individual performances on the defense. Dariel Jabome, talk about a step up for him. 13 total tackles. He's had some big tackle games before, but he really made some big plays. He had a huge sack. He led them with 3 tackles for loss. He looked better overall, and he made some big plays and big moments. And it was great to see him take a step forward in this game. And then Tyree Powell, the captain, he's been battling injuries all year. And when this team needed to play, I talked about it in the preview, they had to force turnovers to win this game. Rutgers was not going to win this game if they didn't force any turnovers. And guess what? They're trailing 16-14, fourth quarter. They hadn't forced a turnover yet. And then Tyree Powell makes a huge hit that forces a fumble on the Minnesota tight end. Shaquan Loyal recovers it in traffic, dove on it, and Rutgers gets the ball inside the red zone. And pretty quickly after, Kaliakmanis finds a wide open Ian Strong, and they capitalize. And that flipped the game. And Tyree Powell, how happy can you be for him just in terms of such a leader for this program and the fact that he's battled through so much. I mean, the season-ending injury last year, he ruptured the Achilles and was, I think, January. Then, he's been battling injuries since his return. This season has not been 100%, and went out there today and gave the defense a lift when they needed it most. 8 tackles, 4 solos, had a quarterback hit, had that forced fumble. Just tremendous effort from him, and just showed true leadership by getting this team the biggest play of the game when they needed it most. Flip the script. They take the lead. Then the next drive, credit to the defense. Kashawn Griffin had a huge sack. I think Minnesota was on their own 15. It was like a 10 or 12-yard loss. He forced a fumble. Minnesota recovered on their own 5, but it really set the tone for after they took the lead. Minnesota gets the ball deep in their own territory, and boom, Kashawn Griffin with a huge sack, forced fumble. And then 2 plays later, you have Jordan Walker, the converted tight end, with the safety that pushes the lead to 7 points, 23-16. Rutgers is unable to deliver the knockout blow, but they were able to get a field goal soon after in another drive with Jay Patel, 22-yarder. Put them up 26-16. They did give up a late field goal to Minnesota, who attempted an onside kick, did not recover. And then Kaliakmanis knelt it down. But overall, in terms of that defense, also Flip Dixon, you got to be happy for him. The former Gopher, 3rd on the team in tackles with 5. He had a pass breakup. He almost had an interception late, which would have been really sweet. He's been battling injuries all year, so credit to him. But Longerbeam was back healthy. Cattell had 3 pass breakups. You also had tackle for loss. Several guys had it. Also, Keontae Hamilton had a sack. Also in this game, had a quarterback hit. By the way, since October, has there been a better defensive player consistently than Keontae Hamilton? If you want to complain about depth and development, you have to signal his development. He has really played well these last 5-6 games for Rutgers and has taken strides and had another sack in this game. 4 sacks for the Rutgers defense, 8 tackles for a loss, 3 by Jabome, 1 by Walker with the sack. Griffin had the sack. Hamilton had the sack. Jordan Thompson had a tackle for loss and a quarterback hit. And then Troy Rainey had a big play with it. Benus, and they each had a half a tackle for loss. So they also had 3 quarterback hits, 2 forced fumbles, one recovery, and then the safety. So the defense really stepping up when it mattered most in the fourth quarter. And it just led to another, when this program is at its best and they're playing the team that is essentially what they've wanted to be this year in terms of a very tough team that makes defensive stops, forces turnovers, and runs the ball. They held Minnesota. Just want to look it up here. They held Minnesota to a season low 35 rushing yards, including minus 25 in the fourth quarter. It was the second lowest rushing total Rutgers has allowed in a Big Ten game since joining the league. They also, that fumble that Powell forced was the first offensive turnover that Minnesota had had in 17 quarters. So it feels good to see this team come through in such big ways in a game they had to have. Because if you lose this game, I was very worried that things would unravel. I said that in the Friday preview. I said that after the USC loss. And this team proved the value of the culture of this program. They proved the character of this program. They proved the heart and the guts of this program. And also just for social media keyboard warriors, those that, listen, I've been very critical of this team. And you know what? It's been completely justified. But you know what? They deserve all the praise after this game. And it's okay. It's totally legitimate to have both point of views. So those that are piling on social media, those that were critical in October, you look silly now. No, you don't. Because you know what? This team deserved criticism in October, and they deserve all the praise after this victory. That's what balanced coverage, assessments, analysis means. And Rutgers deserves their flowers for a much important win. They're now one game away from bowl eligibility. I want to see if I miss anything else here, just in terms of, Patel had that one field goal. He came through again. Anderson punting, solid again, over 43 yards average. Had two inside the 20. No complaints there. By the way, Dremel had a big return late in the game. That was nice to see, 13 yards. I thought it was more than that, but still solid. And then just in terms of, third down conversions, Rutgers struggled towards the end. They were just 4 of 14 in this game. But it was really big where they were 4 of 5 in the red zone. They had that interception. But just in terms of coming through in the red zone, was really important this game. 3 touchdowns and a field goal. That was huge. Overall, they outgained Minnesota 349 to 297. And that was nice to see. Just in terms of first downs, 19 to 18, Rutgers. And then time of possession, Rutgers won that 32 to 28. So they beat Minnesota at their own game in that regard. They were even on takeaways, turnovers, 1 each. And overall, this was just a really, I think, symbolic victory for Greg Schiano and there's issues with this team. There's issues with the depth. There's a lack of development in certain areas. But this is a very clear sign that the floor with Greg Schiano is going to be raised, right? The floor is not a terrible place to be. Now, they missed an opportunity to raise the ceiling for this program a couple notches by the way they went 0-4 in October, right? But now the narrative has a chance to really change. You're 1 win away. You have 3 chances to get 1 win. And listen, they can go to Maryland next week. It's a night game. Maryland is at Oregon as we speak on the West Coast. They're going to get pummeled. Oregon's number 1 team in the country. Maryland's beat up in that game. Rutgers has a chance. They've obviously not fared well against Maryland lately. And again, Maryland's got a lot of talent. They got a lot of speed. It's not going to be an easy game. But then you come home, you have senior day against Illinois, and then you go on the road against Michigan State. If Rutgers can find a way to get 2 wins, right, and we'll take 1. But if they finish 7-5, the narrative on this season changes. And if they can hold serve at 6-6 and go and win a bowl game, the narrative changes because you held serve. You didn't advance in terms of progress, but you didn't fall back either. And I think that is what's so critical now at this juncture of the season is you can't fall back. You got to make a bowl game. You got to be able to show that, hey, we had a ton of adversity this year. We still made a bowl game. And while that's going to be a disappointment from where we all hoped this team would be, it's certainly not a disaster. And if they lost today, you're worried about a disaster happening. Now, listen, if they lose out the next 3, it's fair to be critical, and it's fair to be very, very disappointed where this year shook out. But the heart that this team showed, the effort that this team played with today, it was really encouraging, and it's just pride, right? I mean, we all want the best for this program, and there should be immense pride for how this team performed on Saturday at home. The crowd, listen, it was what I thought it was, and it wasn't super busy early, but I thought it filled out pretty well. They're on NBC, national TV, and they represented. They got the W without Kyle Monungai. If you would have told, any Rutgers fan, I'll put my vintage hat on here if you're watching this, my old school Rutgers logo. Kyle Monungai not playing, and this team, Aaron Lewis was questionable. Also, Wesley Bailey didn't play. This team gutted it out. They showed a ton of character, heart, and just really proud of what they did. And Kaliakmanis, can't say enough of what he's done. People are still being critical. I'm getting mentions, he really wasn't very good. I mean, listen, he made plays when he had to make plays. And when he got the ball back, right? How many times has Rutgers gotten the ball back over the years, defense, and the offense doesn't do anything with it? The offense did something with it. They scored right away, and they punched it in. They got more points after the safety. They did their jobs. Complimentary football, the way Greg Schiano likes it. Rutgers now 5-4 overall, 2-4 in Big Ten play. Still a chance to have a winning record. Still a chance to run the table now. And still a legitimate chance to make a bowl game for a second consecutive year. Something the program hasn't done in a long time. I guess 2011 and 2012. Now that I'm thinking about it. Or no, they made a bowl game in 13. All right, 13 and 14. So a decade, right? So there's progress in many ways here. First time they ever beat Minnesota. By the way, credit to PJ Fleck. He did find Athan Kaliakmanis after the game. You have to give him credit for that. That was a classy move. But overall, that was also a season high for Rutgers, 8 tackles for a loss, and matched the season high with 4 sacks. Also, Rutgers now 13-6 coming up a bye week under Greg Schiano, and 2-0 this season. It was also the 16th fourth quarter comeback under Greg Schiano. Congratulations to Rutgers. And you know what? Fans deserve to be able to celebrate this game, and just so happy for these players, how much work they put in. And it was just a great win. It wasn't a pretty win. It wasn't a perfect performance. They struggled in certain areas, and all is not well. There are certain things that are deficiencies in this team. But overall, they did what they had to do, and they ended a 4-game winning streak by Minnesota. Minnesota's 6-3 coming in this game. They're a bowl team. That's a huge win. So that's going to be a win against, I think Minnesota will win at least one more game. That's going to be a win against a winning team. So that's a notch on your belt there. And, more to come. I'll have a preview Sunday night coming out for Rutgers St. Peter's basketball on Monday. I'll have plenty of football coverage this week. We'll get David Anderson back as well. But, here we go. Football, basketball, and back in it with both. Great to see Rutgers respond the way they did on Saturday. Thanks so much for listening and watching, as always, here at the Scarlet Faithful podcast.